Are you looking for the gateway drug? That thing that's gonna open the doors of massive possibilities? Well, you've come to the right place. My name's Louie. Double G. I'm gonna give you 5 comic book reading recommendations for you comic book novices. From me, a comic book proficientist. Proficientist? I'm a proficient comic book reader. Is what I'm trying to say. All of these comic books I'm about to mention are in no particular order. They're just 5 comic books that I really think are easy for people to read and very, very enjoyable. Some of them might be a little longer than others, but they're all one story under one cover. And for those of us who are challenged when it comes to keeping an attention span, I really do think that these comic books are, in fact, going to keep your attention. So first up on the docket, we're going to go with Batman, The Long Halloween, written by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. Now, I said that these are no in particular order, but out of this whole bunch, Batman, The Long Halloween is probably my favorite, if not like top 2 with the last one that I'm going to talk about. It's an amazing piece of work. I mean, truly and honestly, I could not put this book down. Now, this is a much thicker mini series, so to speak, right? It's, it's a couple hundred pages. However, it's a great detective novel. I mean, it really encompasses what Batman is supposed to be, right? Detective first, fighter second. And I think that it's okay when we have the fighter first and the detective second, right? I think that's what a lot of people kind of gravitate towards when they think of Batman, right? Him being the best hand-to-hand combat specialist, like in the whole DC universe, right? Like being the smartest man on the planet, making all the gadgets and all of those things. Like all of those things are awesome. But this is purely and honestly just about his detective skills. If you go ahead and read this, let me know if you kind of figure it out before the end. I gotta tell you, when I thought it was over, it truly wasn't over. This is one of those 10 out of 10 comic books for me. I always recommend it. It goes throughout all of the holidays throughout the year, and kind of an incident that happens basically on every single one. So yeah, go ahead and check it out. Next up on this list, you know him, you love him, Deadpool. Deadpool Secret Wars. Now, this is a 4-issue comic book written by Cullen Bunn. This comic book follows the events that Deadpool was going through throughout the Secret Wars, right? So we think this is happening somewhere on Battleworld, or one of the many verses on Battleworld. And it's hilarious. It's action-packed. You get to see Deadpool without all the scarring at some point. That might be a spoiler, but in fact, it is like the cover image of the 4th issue. So like, no spoilers really. But this is probably one of my favorite short Deadpool miniseries. If you're part of the comic book world, you know that there's tons of Deadpool miniseries. There's Deadpool versus Thanos, Deadpool versus Carnage, Deadpool and Spider-Man, and just kind of all of those things. And this is kind of one of the best ones. Short, simple, to the point. Go ahead and do yourself a favor, check that one out too. Ooh, and this next one is much like The Long Halloween, where it's darker, it's grittier, but it's one of the more recent ones on this list. That is going to be The Last Ronin. Now, if you're a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan, this is kind of one of those takes on them, published by IDW, that is a lot darker than anything they've ever produced when it comes to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I won't spoil anything because it's still a pretty new comic book. It just wrapped up in 2022. This miniseries comprises of 5 issues, all of which are written, drawn, quite frankly, executed beautifully. This is one of those that has caught so much attention that this is going to be like a video game, and I think there's talks of like an animated movie. This follows a particular Ninja Turtle who is the last one standing after the other 3 have died, and it goes through his story and his journey of having survivor's guilt, of wanting to avenge his brothers, and just kind of trying to figure out who, what, and why. And we see some familiar faces that aren't the Turtles, and we see some new characters. So please do yourself a favor. Once again, go ahead and check out The Last Ronin. Now, the next one is probably the oldest one in this whole bunch. It is The Watchmen. Now, this has 412 pages of nothing but like actual literature. Like, this is one of those comic books that you can absolutely explore it through a literary mindset, and what it means to be like a hero, what it means to be like a police and being in a police state, and like kind of all of those things, right? It follows multiple characters who are the Avengers, or like the Justice League of the universe, published by DC, but not like affiliated with the Justice League, not really. That kind of changes as time goes on in kind of more recent comic book era. But this particular comic book has one of my favorite lines in like kind of most comic book media, and it's the scene where Rorschach is in prison. That might be a little bit of a spoiler. And he says the words, "I'm not in here with you, you're in here with me," and proceeds to beat the shit out of somebody. So if that gives you any idea how this particular comic book is, there you go. It's dark, it's gritty, it's a new take on superheroes, and it kind of started the whole like, what if heroes were bad and not likable thing, right? And then we got The Boys and all of those things. But wonderful comic book, like $12 on Amazon. It might honestly be like the cheapest on this list. Do yourself a favor, go read Watchmen. Also, the movie's pretty good too, one of Zack Snyder's hits. So hey, read the comic book, go watch the movie. All good things. Oh, and I didn't say this, but it was written by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. So there you go. And for this next one, and certainly not least, Superman Red and Blue. So Superman Red and Blue was written by John Ridley, Brandon Easton, Wes Craig, Dan Waters, and Margaret Bennett. Bennett. I don't know how to like pronounce things apparently. So this is a 6-issue comic book, and it kind of puts Superman in a much more humanistic light, right? And each one of these issues is written by a new author. So there's a fresh new take every single issue that you read. And as we all know, Superman is like the biggest comic book hero like ever. And quite frankly, my favorite. And this is one of my favorite comic book recommendations ever. But it's a quick read. Everything is drawn in a red and blue palette, and each one of the characters and cityscapes and things like that are all different variations of the colors red and blue. So go ahead and check it out. I think it's great. It's one of also the newer ones on this list. So do yourself a favor, go ahead and read that. Well, that's going to be it for these reading recommendations. Feel free to let me know if you want to see and hear more of these, and see you on the next one. Bye.